Welcome to Halfway Dark.
The phone that kept calling me with my own voice. I didn't buy a new phone because I wanted one. My old one had cracked. The battery barely held 2 hours, and the charging port only worked if I bent the cable just right. So I upgraded, same brand, new model. The first week was normal. Same apps, same contacts, same mindless scrolling before bed. Then the calls started. The first one came on a Tuesday night. I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed on the sink. The screen lit up with an incoming call from my own number. At first, I assumed it was some kind of glitch. Spam calls can be spoofed to look like any number, even your own. I answered out of curiosity. Hello? What came back wasn't static or silence. It was my voice. Hello. Exact same tone, exact same pacing. Like an echo. I hung up immediately, heart thudding. The next night, it happened again. Same caller ID, same timing, just past 11 p.m. This time, when I answered, the voice said, "Stop doing that." I swallowed hard. Doing what? Writing what you're writing. I glanced down. My laptop was open on my desk. I had been typing out a story draft. I slammed the laptop shut and hung up. By the third call, I had stopped answering. The phone would buzz, my own number glowing on the screen, and I'd just let it ring. But one night, the ringing stopped and I heard my voicemail chime. I played it back. It was my voice again, low and harsh. You can't ignore yourself forever. I tried everything. I blocked my own number. I changed my SIM card. I even got a new carrier. It didn't matter. The calls always came through. Always at 11 p.m., always in my own voice. One night, I decided to record it. I set up my laptop's camera facing the phone, hit record, and waited. At exactly 11:02, the phone lit up. Incoming call. Me. I let it ring a few seconds, then answered on speaker. My voice filled the room. You shouldn't be recording this. I felt my stomach twist. Then my phone screen went black. Dead. The laptop recording froze. When I checked the file later, it was corrupted. Nothing saved. I started sleeping with the phone off. But even then, at 11:02, it would light up on its own and start ringing. I didn't even know a dead phone could do that. One night, I decided to answer with the phone plugged in, the charger visibly keeping it alive. Why me? I asked into the speaker. This time, the voice didn't answer right away. I heard breathing, my breathing. Then it whispered, "Because you're the only one who listens." I threw the phone against the wall, shattering the screen. But when I went to bed that night, I woke up at exactly 11:02, not from a ring, from my own voice whispering in my ear. The calls didn't stop when the phone broke. They just changed. I'd hear my voice on the TV when it was off. I'd hear it from my laptop speakers when nothing was playing. One night, it came through my bathroom fan. I was brushing my teeth, and my own voice hissed through the vent above me. "You look ridiculous trying to ignore me." I stopped inviting people over. I couldn't risk them hearing it. I couldn't explain it. And the worst part? It started saying things I hadn't told anyone. Secrets I'd buried. Mistakes I regretted. Dark thoughts I only ever let slip inside my own head. It didn't just sound like me. It was me. The final straw came last night. I'd been drinking, desperate to drown the noise. At 11:02, right on time, my dead phone lit up on the dresser. I answered without thinking. "What do you want?" I slurred. And my voice, my other voice said, "To take your place." Before I could react, the call ended. And when I looked up into the mirror across the room, my reflection was smiling. But I wasn't. Now, I don't know what's real. I don't know if the voice is outside of me, or if I've already lost the fight inside my own head. All I know is that 11:02 is coming again tonight. and I don't think I'll be the one to pick up. If this story unsettled you, you're in the right place. Halfway Dark is the home of horror that doesn't just scare you, it lingers. Subscribe, and remember, sometimes the worst voice to hear is your own. The stranger who walked into my house without touching the door. It was a little past midnight when I heard the front door click. I froze. I hadn't locked it yet, but I was sure I had shut it tight. The sound wasn't the creak of hinges or the slam of wind. It was the distinct sound of a latch slipping open. I was sitting in the living room, lights dim, scrolling on my phone. I should have stood up immediately, but instead, I just listened. Then I heard footsteps, slow, careful. Moving across the hardwood floored me. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. The footsteps stopped just out of sight, around the corner. Every muscle in my body tightened. Finally, I stood and peeked into the hallway. There was a man, tall, still, just standing there, facing me. I never saw the door open. He wasn't dressed like a burglar. No mask, no gloves, no weapon. Just a plain button-down shirt and black pants. His hair was neatly combed, his shoes spotless. He looked more like a man on his way to the office than someone breaking into my house. But the way he stared at me, unblinking, faint smile at the corner of his mouth, made my stomach drop. "Get out," I said, trying to sound firm. He tilted his head, like I'd said something amusing. Then he said, in a calm, steady voice, "I didn't come in?" That made no sense. I watched his lips form the words. I heard his voice echo down the hall, but the door behind him was still shut tight. I had no memory of hearing it open again after the click. "How are you here?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward. I backed up until I felt the couch press against my legs. That's when my phone buzzed in my pocket. An unknown number was calling. I answered without thinking. The voice on the other end was mine. "Don't let him touch you." My breath hitched. I looked up. The man was still there, standing only a few feet away now. "Who are you?" I whispered into the phone. But my own voice replied, "You know who I am." He's what happens if you stop paying attention. I dropped the phone and bolted for the kitchen. My first thought was to grab a knife, but when I flicked the light on, the stranger was already there, leaning casually against the counter, like he'd been waiting. My phone buzzed again in the living room. Same call, same warning. "You can't run from me," the stranger said, smiling wider. "You invited me in the moment you stopped watching. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't get air into my lungs." "What do you want?" I choked out. He tapped his temple with one finger. "To be remembered." I don't know what happened after that. I woke up hours later, slumped on the kitchen floor, head pounding like I'd blacked out. The house was quiet. The door was locked, but my phone screen glowed with one missed voicemail. I hit play. It was my own voice again. Too late. He's in now. Ever since, I felt him here. Not always visible. Sometimes it's just the sound of footsteps when I'm home alone, or the sense of someone standing just behind me when I look in the mirror. Other times, I catch glimpses of him sitting on my couch, or standing at the end of the hallway, smiling like he's been living here the whole time. And sometimes I hear my own voice in the middle of the night, whispering from the dark, "Don't let him touch you." But by then, he's already in the room. If this one left you uneasy, you're in the right place. Halfway Dark is where horror follows you past the video. Subscribe, and don't forget to lock your doors, even if it won't help. The man living in my reflection. I've always had this strange unease with mirrors. Not a phobia exactly, just discomfort. I avoid eye contact with myself when I brush my teeth, shave, or wash my face. It feels like I'm looking at someone else, someone who just happens to know how to mimic me perfectly. Most people shrug that off as imagination. I did too until last winter. It was just after Christmas. and my apartment felt unnervingly empty. No tree anymore, no lights, no family around. Just me, my buzzing fridge, and the faint creaks of old pipes. That's when I noticed it. My reflection didn't always move at the same time I did. It was subtle at first. If I leaned forward too quickly to spit out toothpaste, my reflection seemed to pause just a fraction too long before catching up. If I turned my head, it was like the mirror world me was, processing the movement before deciding to copy it. I thought I was tired, maybe hungover from the holidays. But then, on New Year's Eve, it got worse. I was getting ready to go out. I adjusted my jacket, smoothed down my hair, and smiled at the mirror. That's when I froze. My reflection didn't smile back. It stared, blank, flat expression, and then, with a tiny twitch, it smirked. My knees went weak. I dropped the comb in my hand, and when I bent down to grab it, my reflection didn't. He just watched me. His eyes didn't even blink. By the time I stood up again, he was mirroring me perfectly like nothing had happened. I didn't go out that night. From then on, I avoided mirrors as much as I could. I used my phone camera to check my appearance before work. I covered the bathroom mirror with an old bed sheet. But reflections are everywhere: storefront windows, glossy black TV screens, even the reflection in my coffee mug. And once you start noticing them, you realize how impossible it is to escape. One morning, rushing to work, I caught my reflection in the train window. I was half asleep, head nodding to the rhythm of the tracks. My reflection, though, was wide awake. Its eyes were wide, staring at me. I blinked. My reflection didn't. I went to an eye doctor, then a neurologist. Both told me I was fine. Stress, maybe. Overwork. Your brain can play tricks when you're anxious, the neurologist said, scribbling notes. Mirrors can become uncanny because they force you to scrutinize yourself. But it didn't feel like a trick. 2 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night. My bedroom mirror was across from my bed. I'd forgotten to cover it. I lay there, staring at the dark silhouette of my reflection. It should have been still, sleeping like me, but it wasn't. It was sitting upright, grinning. I've since learned to sleep facing the wall. But the problem is, once you realize the man in your reflection isn't you, you start to see how he's different. My reflection blinks too rarely. His smile is always a beat too late. And sometimes, when I catch him in the corner of my eye, I swear he mouths words. Silent words, like he's practicing. Practicing what? A breaking point came one evening when I got home from work. I set down my bag, turned on the kitchen light, and walked past the hallway mirror. Except the reflection didn't walk. It stood still, staring at me as I walked by. I froze mid-step. Slowly, I turned my head. My reflection wasn't copying me anymore. He was grinning again. Wider this time, his teeth too sharp, too long. And then he waved. Not in a mirror image way, but a real wave. His right hand, my right hand, I ran. I taped cardboard over every mirror in the apartment. I even unplugged the TV. My place looks insane now, like I'm hiding from myself. But I don't care. I thought I'd contained him until last week. I was brushing my teeth over the kitchen sink, using my phone screen to check. I tilted the phone slightly, and for just a second, I saw him, not me him, smiling from inside the reflection on the glass cabinet behind me. He was closer. Last night, I woke up to the sound of glass cracking. I sat up, heart pounding. The bed sheet I'd taped over the bedroom mirror was torn down, lying on the floor. The mirror itself had a single handprint pressed against the inside of the glass. My hand, except it was still there when I touched the surface. The inside handprint didn't match mine anymore. His fingers are longer. I don't know how much longer I have. Every time I see him, he's stronger, faster, bolder. He doesn't just mimic me anymore. He lingers. He watches. And sometimes, when the room is too quiet, I swear I can hear fingernails scraping faintly from inside the glass. I'm writing this now because I know what's coming. He wants out. And I think the next time I see him, it won't be in a mirror. If reflections unsettle you as much as they do me, you're in the right place. This channel dives into the kind of horror that messes with your head long after the story ends. Subscribe and don't turn away from the mirror tonight. You might miss something staring back. The neighbor who knows too much about me. When I moved into my new apartment last spring, I thought I was escaping the worst of city life, loud traffic, cramped living, landlords who didn't care. The building wasn't fancy, but it was clean, quiet, and cheap enough for me to breathe financially. My neighbor across the hall introduced herself the very first night. Her name was Clara. She was polite, maybe mid-30s, and carried herself like she'd been living there forever. If you need anything, she told me with a bright smile, I'm right here. It felt comforting at first. But within days, I realized Clara knew far too much about me. The first odd thing she said happened only 3 days after I'd moved in. I was unlocking my door when she stepped into the hall with her trash bag. Long day at work? She asked. Yeah, I muttered. Don't worry, she said warmly. They'll stop making you stay until 7:15 once you prove yourself. I froze. How could she possibly know what time I'd gotten home? I laughed it off awkwardly. Yeah, hopefully. But that night, while brushing my teeth, I kept replaying her words. 7:15, exactly the time I'd walked into the building. The next week, it got worse. I was headed out one morning when she opened her door just as I passed. Don't forget your wallet this time, she said cheerfully. I froze. Last week, I had forgotten my wallet and had to run back upstairs for it. I'd never told anyone. She couldn't have known. But Clara just smiled like a friendly neighbor, waved, and shut her door. I started testing her. I left at different times each day. Sometimes I'd circle the block before coming in. Other times I'd leave quietly in the middle of the night to grab snacks from the 24-hour bodega. Every time she knew. If I came back at 1:47 in the morning, she'd casually mention, late night cravings are the worst. If I skipped the gym one morning, she'd chuckle, rest days are important too. She never asked questions. She never phrased anything like curiosity. It was always stated as fact. Like she wasn't guessing, like she knew. The breaking point came after about a month. I woke up one morning to find a small package outside my door. No return address. Inside was a framed photo. It was me sitting at my desk, typing on my laptop. The angle was from inside my apartment. I felt the blood drain from my face. My first thought was cameras. Someone must have installed one in my place. I tore through the apartment, checking every vent, light fixture, outlet. Nothing. That evening, I heard Clara humming through her door. Same cheerful voice, same calm presence. I knocked. She answered instantly, like she'd been standing right there. Oh, hi. Everything okay? I held up the photo. Did you put this here? She tilted her head, studied it, and smiled faintly. That's a nice picture of you. That's not what I asked. Her smile didn't waver. You should lock your windows more often. And then she closed the door in my face. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Clara standing in my apartment watching. I bought new locks the next day. I hammered the windows shut. I even taped over the peephole in my door. But it didn't matter, because 2 nights later, I woke to the sound of someone whispering my name, not from outside, from the corner of my room. I sat up, heart pounding. My eyes adjusted to the dark, and I swore I saw movement, a figure retreating into the shadows. I grabbed the lamp and flicked it on. No one was there, but my closet door was open. I never leave it open. The police didn't take me seriously. They checked the locks, found no signs of forced entry, and left with a shrug. Maybe your neighbor just likes you, one officer suggested. But Clara wasn't hitting on me. She wasn't interested. She was studying. A week later, I came home to find a note slipped under my door. It said, "Stop trying to catch me. You'll never see me until I want you to." That night, I ripped every piece of furniture away from the walls, searching for hidden panels. I unscrewed outlets, tore open the bottoms of drawers, even pulled up corners of the carpet. Nothing. Still, Clara kept knowing. She knew when I cried myself to sleep. She knew what show I paused halfway through because it was too scary. She knew the exact words I'd said out loud when I thought I was alone. The final straw came last weekend. I'd been sitting in silence all day, deliberately not speaking, not moving much, just scrolling on my phone. At 11 p.m., a knock came at my door. When I didn't answer, Clara's voice floated through. "Why didn't you laugh at the joke you just read?" I froze. My phone screen was still glowing in my hand. I'd just scrolled past the stupid meme. I hadn't laughed, but I'd smiled. There was no sound to give that away. No way anyone could have seen me through the door. Unless she was inside. I didn't sleep. I sat with my back against the door until morning. Now, as I write this, I've decided I'm moving out. I don't care about the lease. I don't care about the deposit. Because last night, I caught Clara watching me again. Not through a window. Not in my apartment. Through my bathroom mirror. When I looked up from washing my hands, she was behind me in the reflection smiling. But when I turned around, the room was empty. I don't know how she's doing it. Cameras? Secret passages? Something else? But I know this. Clara doesn't just watch me. She knows me. And if I stay here one more night, I think she'd do more than watch. If paranoia has ever made your skin crawl, you belong here. This channel uncovers the kind of horror that lingers in your head long after the story ends. Subscribe, and if your neighbor seems too curious, maybe don't look them in the eye. I found my own diary written by someone else. It started on a rainy Tuesday. I came home to find my mailbox stuffed with a thin, leather-bound diary. It had no return address. The cover was scratched and worn, but the initials were unmistakably mine. JD. I flipped it open. The handwriting was mine, but the entries detailed events I didn't remember living through. The first page described that morning's commute in exact detail. The way the bus lurched over potholes, the stranger with the torn coat sitting across from me, the drop of coffee that splashed on the strap of my bag. I hadn't written any of it. At first, I assumed a prank. Maybe a friend had access to my notes. I double-checked my apartment. No one. Locks intact. Window secure. Nothing. The diary kept going. It described evenings at home I couldn't remember. Conversations with people I'd never met. Details that I knew were impossible. My own thoughts transcribed in a voice that felt familiar, but warped. I tried to ignore it, pretended it didn't exist. But each day, the diary moved closer to me. I'd leave it on my desk. It would appear on my bed, leave it on the couch. It would sit beside me while I watched TV. The entries became more personal. Not just descriptions, but instructions. Leave the door unlocked at 3:12 a.m. Do not answer the phone. Check the window before sleep. I followed them once, thinking maybe this was some insane game. That night, I woke to the feeling of someone breathing behind me. My apartment was still, but the hairs on my neck prickled. A shadow stretched across the walls. I turned on the lights. Nothing. The next morning, a new entry appeared. I swear I didn't write it. You saw me, but you didn't see me fully. Remember, I became obsessed. Checking the diary, reading, rereading, trying to understand. Hours passed unnoticed, days blurred. Work became impossible. The strangest part, the diary predicted my own thoughts. When I considered calling a friend, a note would appear. Do not call. Wait. I waited. The call never came. Or maybe I imagined it. Then came the dreams. Not nightmares, exactly, but strange memories of events I could not have lived. Walking down streets I'd never seen. Talking to people I didn't know. Feeling emotions I'd never felt. When I woke, small notes had appeared in the diary, describing the dream in exact detail. I stopped leaving the house. My apartment became both prison and safe haven. The diary never left my side. Weeks passed. The entries became darker. You will see me tonight. I am patient, and I did. I woke at 3:12 in the morning, exactly as the diary said. The apartment was silent. I felt a presence behind the bedroom door. The shadows shifted. I saw a figure, pale, bent, wearing my face like a mask. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. It opened the diary, turned to a blank page, and started writing. By morning, the handwriting was mine again. The new entry detailed everything I had done while frozen. Heart racing, paralyzed, watching, helpless. The last sentence, do not worry. You will join me soon. If you crave stories that twist reality and make your mind question what's real, subscribe for more psychological horror tales. Each story is crafted to stay with you long after the video ends. The stranger who lived in my walls without me knowing. I used to think it was just my imagination. Scratches, faint footsteps, tiny thumps in the night. They seemed normal in an apartment this old. My neighbors had dogs, kids, noisy lives. I convinced myself the sounds came from them, a thin excuse to calm my nerves. But things started disappearing. Small items first. A pair of socks here, a charging cable there. I blamed myself. Maybe I absent-mindedly moved them. I worked late nights at a quiet office. My brain was tired, foggy, forgetful. Then the food began vanishing. Sandwiches I left on the counter were gone. Half-filled milk cartons, lighter than I remembered. The cereal boxes were suddenly smaller, despite my careful counting the night before. I double-checked the locks on the doors and windows. Everything was secure. No signs of forced entry. One morning, I found my shampoo gone, replaced with the same brand, but half full. Someone had been inside my apartment. My apartment, alone. I didn't know whether to panic or rationalize. I told myself it was stress. New job, long hours, and living alone. The noises grew worse. Footsteps pacing behind walls, a whisper just under my ear. I could almost sense a presence, but no one was ever there when I looked. I set up a small camera in the bedroom, figuring I could catch a burglar. The first night, nothing unusual appeared on the footage. Just me, asleep, alone in the dark. But I heard the sound. A door creaking slowly, floorboards groaning under weight. I stayed awake the second night. The apartment was silent at first, then a cough. A low, deliberate exhale from inside the walls. The vent rattled. Something brushed across the hallway floor. I froze, heart thundering. My eyes strained in the dim light. The bedroom door creaked open slowly. A shadow stretched across the floor. Slow, deliberate, breathing just outside my vision. I wanted to scream but couldn't. I had to know if it was real. I snapped the lights on. Nothing. The hallway was empty. The apartment was still. I shook my head. Stress. Exhaustion. Imaginations can play cruel tricks, I reminded myself. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. My apartment was quiet. Then my own sleeping figure appeared in the frame. A hand sliding from the closet behind me, pale and human, brushing the air like it had existed there forever. I had no memory of filming that. I checked the walls. No holes, no signs, nothing. My apartment, my home, seemed untouched. And yet, I knew someone or something had been inside. Every night, I imagined movement in the walls. I slept with the lights on, headphones in, television blasting. Weeks passed. I tried to ignore the noises. I left for work, only to come home to find small items moved again. A notebook on the floor where it hadn't been, dishes stacked incorrectly, my bed slightly off-center. I started leaving notes, messages for this invisible intruder. Stop. I see you. Go away. Nothing. Or maybe it was a response. One morning, my sticky note was crumpled, lying in the middle of the floor. I hadn't touched it. I became obsessed with tracking the patterns. The intruder, or perhaps it wasn't human, moved in rhythms I couldn't predict. The noises followed me like a shadow, always just beyond my vision, always making me doubt my own senses. Around minute 90 of one restless night, I found a hidden space behind the bedroom paneling. A small cavity, dusted over, barely large enough for a person to squeeze into. And in the corner, a pair of pale eyes blinked at me. I froze, couldn't breathe. My mind raced. Who? How? Why? But the figure didn't move, just stared. And then it whispered my name. Not a voice, but a feeling, something primal. My stomach dropped. My apartment, my reality, felt suddenly smaller, like I wasn't alone at all. I ran, packed a bag, stayed at a friend's apartment, checked in daily via video call, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. I thought I was safe. But the whispers continued, faintly, through my phone, through messages I didn't send, notifications I hadn't opened. I returned home after a week. Door locked, windows secured. Yet as I stepped in, the faint creak of floorboards greeted me, then a shadow slipping across the corner of the living room. My things were subtly shifted, and the walls they breathed. The apartment exhaled around me. The intruder wasn't a burglar, not exactly. Not someone who wanted things. It was someone or something that wanted me to feel it, wanted me to notice it. And every night since, I feel eyes watching me from the walls, the ceiling, even inside my head. I've tried to leave, but each time I pack, I find my bag slightly open. Items moved. Letters left on my bed. You're already here. And I know I'm not alone. I've never been alone.